To start this build off, I wanted to show you some of my recent tank projects and the progress I've made as a modeler before jumping into this new Panther. Here's the second tank I ever built, a Tamiya Panther. Comparing it to the builds I've completed recently, you can really see how much I've improved and how far this hobby has taken me. Now moving on to the Academy 135 Panther G late production, the first thing that caught my attention was the 6 different colored paint references included in the instructions. Add in the great level of detail without being overloaded with unnecessary parts, and this kit is already making a great first impression. As construction gets underway, let's take a closer look at the history of the Panther. Introduced in 1943, it was designed after Germany encountered the Soviet T-34 on the Eastern Front. The T-34's combination of firepower, armor, and mobility came as a surprise, making it clear that a new tank was needed to regain the advantage. The result was a Panther, a design that combined strong protection, impressive firepower, and excellent mobility. Over the course of the war, it would earn a reputation as one of the most capable medium tanks ever built. The development of the Panther was a major shift in German tank design. Unlike earlier German tanks that focused heavily on armor and firepower, the Panther introduced a balance between protection, mobility, and a powerful main gun. Its sloped frontal armor gave it excellent protection, while the high-velocity 75mm KWK-42 gun allowed it to engage many Allied tanks from much greater distances. However, creating such an advanced design came with challenges, and the Panther would face reliability issues during its early service. Over time, improvements would be made, leading to later variants like the Panther G, which became the most produced and refined version of the Panther. Despite its impressive design, the Panther's combat debut at the Battle of Kursk in 1943 didn't go as planned. Many of the early vehicles suffered from mechanical failures before they even reached the battlefield, with engine and transmission problems proving to be major weaknesses. Even so, when the Panther was operational, it quickly demonstrated what it was capable of. Its combination of sloped armor, excellent mobility, and a powerful 75mm gun made it a serious threat to Allied armor. As production continued, many of the early reliability issues were addressed, allowing the Panther to become a far more dependable fighting vehicle. As production continued, German engineers worked to improve many of the Panther's early shortcomings. The result was a series of refinements that increased reliability and made the tank more practical to operate in combat. The Ausf G, the version featured in this build, was the final and most widely produced variant. It introduced changes to the hull design, improved side armor, and several manufacturing improvements that made production more efficient while maintaining the Panther's excellent combat performance. By the final years of the war, the Panther G had become the standard Panther seen on battlefields across Europe. By the end of the war, more Panther Gs had been built than any other Panther variant, making it the version most people picture today. Although Germany's industrial situation continued to worsen, production carried on as factories simplified certain components to keep tanks rolling off the assembly line. Even with these changes, the Panther remained a formidable opponent and left a lasting mark on armored warfare. Although the Panther is often regarded as one of the finest medium tanks of the Second World War, it wasn't without its compromises. It was expensive to build, required significant maintenance, and demanded experienced crews to keep it operating effectively in the field. Even so, when properly maintained and supported, the Panther earned the respect of both its crews and its opponents. Its combination of mobility, sloped armor, and an accurate high-velocity gun made it a dangerous battlefield opponent throughout the final years of the war. Its influence on post-war tank design can still be seen in many of the main battle tanks that followed. Although the Panther is often regarded as one of the finest medium tanks of the Second World War, it wasn't without its compromises. It was expensive to build, required significant maintenance, and demanded experienced crews to keep it operating effectively in the field. Even so, when properly maintained and supported, the Panther earned the respect of both its crews and its opponents. Its combination of mobility, sloped armor, and an accurate high-velocity gun made it a dangerous battlefield opponent throughout the final years of the war. Its influence on post-war tank design can still be seen in many of the main battle tanks that followed. Although thousands of Panthers were built, relatively few survived the war. Today, only a small number remain in museums and private collections around the world, where they continue to be restored and preserved for future generations. For historians, the Panther offers a glimpse into one of the most advanced tank designs of its era. For modelers like us, it provides an incredible mix of engineering, history, and detail that makes it such a rewarding project to recreate and scale. Now that we've explored the story behind the real vehicle, it's time to turn our attention back to the model and start bringing this Panther to life. Now it's time to sort through my cast resin aftermarket stowage. I definitely won't be using every piece, so I like to lay everything out and carefully choose what best suits this Panther. The goal is to avoid overloading the tank while creating a layout that looks natural, practical, and believable for a vehicle that's seen plenty of time in the field. With the stowage planned out, it's finally time to get some paint on the model, starting with Vallejo Surface Primer in Rot Brown RAL 8012. Besides giving the paint something to grip to, using a colored primer also helps establish the overall tone of the finish before the camouflage even begins. Because this Panther will be heavily weathered later on, the reddish-brown primer can add subtle warmth anywhere the top coats wear or become chipped. It also makes it much easier to spot any remaining seam lines, sanding marks, or small imperfections that were easy to miss on bare plastic. Catching those flaws now is a lot easier than discovering them after the camouflage has already been sprayed. With the Rot Brown primer finished on the hull, the focus shifts to the tracks, where I'm applying Vallejo Black Surface Primer. A black base works well here because it adds natural depth between the track links and provides a solid foundation for the metallic finishes and weathering that will come later. Since I still had black primer left in the airbrush, I decided to put it to good use instead of pouring it out. I sprayed it along the weld seams, panel lines, and hard edges of the Panther as a bit of an experiment. My hope is that it'll create deeper shadows beneath the camouflage while also adding another layer of color variation wherever I chip the paint later in the build. With that experiment complete, it's time to apply Vallejo Chipping Medium, setting the stage for the worn, battle-weary finish I'm aiming to achieve. With the chipping medium dry, it's time to spray the Dunkelgelb. Although it'll be the least prominent color in the finished camouflage, it's the first one that needs to go down because it'll be taped off before the remaining colors are applied. Once the Dunkelgelb has cured, I'll place tape directly over the areas I want to keep yellow. That way, I can spray the green and brown camouflage without worrying about accidentally covering or overspraying this base color. I'm building the paint up gradually with light passes. It gives a smoother finish, preserves the work underneath, and leaves me with a solid foundation for the rest of the camouflage pattern. With the Dunkelgelb fully cured, I spent about an hour carefully masking off every area that I wanted to remain yellow. It's not the most exciting part of the build, but taking the time here makes a huge difference by producing much cleaner, sharper camouflage lines. Once all the masking was finally complete, it was time to spray the Dunkelgrün over the exposed areas. At this point, the Panther is finally starting to take on its distinctive late-war German camouflage pattern. With the Dunkelgrün finished, the only camouflage color left is the Rotbraun. Before spraying it on, I'm using small rolls of poster putty around the masked areas to help block any unwanted overspray. It creates a soft barrier that keeps the brown exactly where I want it without affecting the colors already underneath. Once the paint has had a chance to dry, it's finally time for the moment I've been looking forward to throughout the entire camouflage process: removing the masking. This is where all the planning, masking, and careful spraying either pays off or shows where adjustments are needed. Thankfully, everything came together just as I'd hoped. Watching the 3-color camouflage appear for the first time is one of the most satisfying moments of the entire build. Earlier in the build, we applied the chipping medium beneath the camouflage, and now it's time to see the payoff. After adding a little water, the chipping medium reactivates, allowing the top coat to be carefully worn away in a controlled manner. Using a pair of soft-edged tweezers, I'm concentrating the wear in areas where branches, brush, crew movement, and everyday use would naturally leave their mark. The goal isn't random damage, it's to create a tank that looks like it's actually been working in the field. And before someone heads to the comments to say, "They've never seen a Panther chipped like this in a reference photo," that's perfectly fine. I'm basing this finish on years around heavy equipment and how paint wears in the real world, not on spending all day zooming into colorized photos that some Joe Blow on the internet may or may not have edited. With the chipping complete, it's time to turn our attention to the tracks. To begin building up some realistic depth, I'm applying 2 washes, starting with the lighter fur brown before following it with the flat brown. I've pre-thinned them roughly 60-40 to allow them to naturally settle into the recesses and around track detail. Once both washes have dried, I use an AK rubber black paint marker to pick out the rubber portions with a much cleaner finish than I'd get using a brush. It's a simple step, but it really helps separate the different materials and makes each component stand out. To finish everything off, I switch to a dark aluminium paint marker and highlight the polished contact surfaces on the tracks. These are the areas that would constantly rub against the ground in running gear, exposing fresh metal and adding another layer of realism. Now that the tracks are installed, it's time to finish painting the resin stowage before it finds its place on the Panther. To keep the process efficient, I'm using the AK Real Color marker set, which makes it easy to give each piece its own color while still maintaining good control over the smaller details. After the base colors are complete, I inspect each piece to make sure everything looks the way I want before moving on to the weathering. The final step is applying Tamiya panel line accent color, allowing it to flow into the folds, seams, and recessed details. Next up are the Panther's exhaust, and this is where the layering really starts to pay off. Instead of relying on a single rust color, I'm gradually building the finish by applying several different rust tones over one another. Each layer adds a little more depth and variation, helping to break up the surface. By the time everything is complete, the exhaust have a much more natural, 3-dimensional appearance. It really is a straightforward technique. The smaller details are really starting to come together now. I'm using paint markers to finish the tools mounted along the side of the Panther, making it quick and easy to pick out each handle and metal surface without affecting the surrounding paintwork. Next, I apply black and brown panel line accent color along the weld seams. Finally, all the resin stowage and spare track links are permanently attached to the tank. I'm still leaving the side skirts off for now. At this stage, it's time to start tying the entire finish together with pigments. To keep everything secure, I'm using odorless mineral spirits to bind the pigments to the surface before they dry in place. Rather than relying on a single color, I build the dust up in 3 layers. I begin with the darkest pigment to establish the deepest tones, follow it with a medium shade to add variation, and finish it with the lightest color to represent the finest dust settling over everything. I leave the model alone for about 12 hours so everything has time to dry completely. Once they're fully cured, I can begin working them back, removing and blending small amounts until the effect looks balanced and realistic. I also dust the pigments lightly across the rest of the Panther, not just the lower hull. As these vehicles moved along roads, trails, and open ground, fine dust would settle over much of the vehicle, helping to soften the camouflage and tie the entire weathering process together. I leave the bottoms of the track pigment free, otherwise every time the model moves, it'll leave dust everywhere. After finishing the pigments, it's finally time to install the Panther's side skirts. The kit molds each side as a single piece, but on the real vehicles, the individual skirt panels were often damaged or missing. To recreate that look, I carefully score along the panel lines with a hobby knife and remove a few sections before attaching them to the tank. Once they're in place, I weather the side skirts using the same pigments as the rest of the build. Matching the dust and dirt helps blend everything together. Looking back at the second tank I ever built, it's amazing to see how much I've learned since then. Every project teaches you something new, and this Panther has been no exception. I hope you've enjoyed following this build from start to finish. If you did, I'd really appreciate your support by liking, following, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next build.